Death is the only thing that every person born into this world must face. The Bible reminds us in Romans 5:1 that death entered the world because of sin, and since then it has come to all people. It is a reality that we cannot escape. Our time will come one day. But did you know that there were 3 men who defied this principle? 3 men who never tasted death and were taken in the most extraordinary ways. Who are these men? What made them so special that they could avoid the grave? Get ready to explore this incredible mystery. Join us as we uncover the hidden truths behind their remarkable stories and discover what made them different. You won't want to miss this fascinating journey into the miraculous. Stay tuned, because what we are about to share could forever change your perspective on life and death. Number 1. Enoch, a man who never tasted death, stands out as one of the most extraordinary figures in the Bible. He was neither a descendant of Cain nor of Abel, but came from Adam and Eve through their 3rd son. From this family line, many important names emerged, including his great-grandson Noah, who would later play a key role in God's plan before the Great Flood. In a time filled with moral decay and sin, the world was becoming increasingly corrupt. People's thoughts and actions were continuously evil, and humanity was drifting further and further away from its Creator. However, amid this darkness, one man stood out as a beacon of righteousness: Enoch. Enoch was the 7th generation from Adam, a direct descendant of Seth and the father of Methuselah, the longest living man in the Bible, who lived 969 years. He was directly connected to the patriarchal lineage that led to Noah, a crucial figure in God's plan for human redemption through the flood. However, Enoch was no ordinary man. His life marked a significant departure from the sinful tendencies of his contemporaries. While others were sinking deeper into sin, Enoch chose a different path. He decided to walk with God. This decision set him apart from a world consumed by corruption and decadence. It highlighted his incredible faith, dedication, and determination to live righteously in a time when sin was the norm. Genesis 5:22-24 provides an extraordinary account of Enoch's life. Enoch walked with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. Walking with God implies an intimate and continuous relationship with the Creator. It was not merely about following rules or performing rituals. For Enoch, it was a deep and personal connection with God. It involved daily conversations, listening to God's guidance, and aligning his actions with His will. This level of intimacy was unique and extraordinary. Enoch's life became a continuous journey of faith and devotion, where he prioritized God above all else. In those early days of humanity, lifespans were astonishingly long, reaching centuries, before God established the limit of 120 years, as mentioned in Genesis 6:3. However, even among these long lives, Enoch's was extraordinary. At the age of 65, he became the father of Methuselah, but his true journey of faith began then. From that moment on, it continued for 365 years. His faith was neither casual nor distant. Rather, it was active, vibrant, and deeply pleasing to God. Enoch lived in complete harmony with God's will, with unwavering trust and obedience. The brevity of Enoch's account in Genesis has led to much speculation and elaboration in other ancient texts. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish religious work, expands on his story, portraying him as a scribe of righteousness and a mediator between God and humanity. This book recounts Enoch's encounters with divine beings, his journeys through heavenly realms, and the visions of divine mysteries he accessed. In Jude 1:14-15, Enoch is mentioned as a prophet who spoke of a future day when the Lord would return with countless saints to bring judgment upon the sinful world. His words are both a warning and a promise, pointing out sin while offering hope to the faithful. This prophetic role further underscores Enoch's importance as a man of profound spiritual insight and courage. The phrase "God took him away" is not a metaphor when it comes to Enoch. Hebrews 11:5-6 emphasizes this truth. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. Before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Enoch's translation to heaven was an unprecedented act of divine favor, a reward for his faith and obedience. Luke, in his genealogy of Jesus, Luke 3:37, includes Enoch, tracing his lineage back to Adam. This connection highlights Enoch's role in God's plan of redemption. His great-grandson Noah would later follow his example of faith and righteousness, choosing to obey God in a world filled with wickedness. Through Noah, the seeds of faith planted by Enoch bore fruit, ensuring the survival of humanity and the continuation of God's promises. The life and legacy of Enoch are a testimony to the rewards of walking closely with God. He not only walked physically with him, his faith defined every step he took. Enoch's story challenges us to reflect on our own lives and consider the depth of our relationship with God. Enoch shows us that it is possible to live a life that pleases God, even in a world full of sin and distractions. Imagine living in such close communion with God that He decides to take you directly to heaven without experiencing death. That is the extraordinary nature of Enoch's story. His unwavering faith and devotion granted him an unprecedented place in biblical history, a man who never tasted death but was taken directly into God's presence. Enoch's story is not just about his escape from death, but about the kind of life that led him to such an extraordinary event. His journey encourages us to seek a deeper and more meaningful connection with God, one that transforms our lives and inspires those around us. By walking with God as Enoch did, we too can live lives filled with purpose, faith, and divine favor. Number 2, Elijah. Elijah was a prophet in Israel during a time of great moral and spiritual decline. King Ahab, one of the most corrupt monarchs of Israel, and his wife Jezebel led the nation into idol worship, turning them away from the God of Israel. Jezebel, a devoted follower of the pagan god Baal, led many Israelites astray, and the entire nation abandoned their faith. In this dark time, Elijah, a righteous man of God, was called to confront Israel's wickedness. Boldly, he proclaimed to King Ahab that there would be no rain or dew on the land unless he declared it, a divine judgment for the nation's idolatry and injustice. For 3.5 years, the heavens remained closed, and a severe drought struck the land. During this time, God provided for Elijah in miraculous ways. He hid him by a brook where ravens brought him food. When the brook dried up, God led him to the city of Zarephath. There, Elijah met a widow who was preparing to die of hunger along with her son. Trusting in God's provision, Elijah asked the widow to bake him a piece of bread first, assuring her that her flour and oil would not run out. The widow obeyed, and miraculously her supplies remained unending throughout the entire drought. Elijah's faith was tested even further when he confronted the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. He called for a challenge to prove who the true God was. The prophets of Baal cried out to their God, but nothing happened. Then Elijah rebuilt the altar of the Lord, drenched his sacrifice with water, and prayed to God. Fire came down from heaven, consuming the sacrifice, the altar, and even the water, proving that the Lord is the one true God. After this victory, Elijah announced the end of the drought. He prayed fervently, and soon a small cloud appeared, a sign that rain was coming. God sent a powerful storm, bringing relief to the land. Despite these miracles, Elijah faced great opposition. Queen Jezebel sought to take his life, which forced Elijah to flee into the wilderness. Exhausted and discouraged, he prayed for death, but God sent an angel to provide him with food and water, restoring his strength. Elijah then traveled to Mount Horeb, where he had a profound encounter with God. It was not in a strong wind, an earthquake, or a fire that God revealed himself, but in a gentle whisper. This moment renewed Elijah's purpose, and God gave him instructions for the future, including the appointment of Elisha as his successor. Elijah knew that his time on earth was coming to an end, and God revealed it to him. As he traveled with Elisha, they crossed the Jordan River after Elijah struck the waters with his cloak, dividing them so they could cross on dry ground. As they walked, a chariot of fire, drawn by fiery horses, appeared, and Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha, witnessing this miraculous event, picked up Elijah's cloak and returned to the Jordan. He struck the waters with the cloak, and the river parted again, demonstrating that the Spirit of God was now with him. Elijah did not experience death in the traditional sense. His legacy of faith, obedience, and courage in the face of evil continues to inspire generations. His story marked a pivotal moment in Israel's history and paved the way for the ministry of Elisha. Number 3. Melchizedek. Melchizedek first appears in Genesis 14 during a time of war between the city-states of Canaan and Mesopotamia. Abraham's nephew, Lot, and his family were captured during these conflicts. When Abraham heard of it, he gathered 318 of his trained servants and pursued the captors, successfully rescuing Lot and his family. After Abraham's victorious return, Melchizedek suddenly appears in the narrative. Genesis 14:18-20 describes Melchizedek as the king of Salem and priest of the Most High God. He brought out bread and wine and blessed Abraham, saying, "Blessed be Abraham by the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High God, who delivered your enemies into your hands." In response, Abraham gave Melchizedek a tithe, a tenth of everything he had. The title King of Salem connects Melchizedek to the city that would later be called Jerusalem. The word Salem means peace in Hebrew, making Melchizedek the King of Peace. His name also means King of Righteousness, further emphasizing his unique role. Melchizedek's story is mentioned again in Psalm 110, where David, speaking prophetically about the Messiah, says, "The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." This verse links Melchizedek's priesthood with that of Jesus Christ, who is described as the eternal high priest in the New Testament. In Hebrews 6:19-20 and Hebrews 7, the author explains that after his resurrection, Jesus took the position of high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Unlike the Levitical priesthood, which was temporary and based on lineage, the priesthood of Melchizedek, and therefore that of Jesus, is eternal and based on divine authority. One of the most enigmatic aspects of Melchizedek is his lack of genealogy. Hebrews 7:3 states, "Melchizedek had no father or mother, no genealogy, no beginning of days or end of life, but resembling the Son of God, he remains a priest forever." This has led many to wonder whether Melchizedek was merely a man or something more. Some scholars suggest that Melchizedek was a historical figure, a true king-priest whose story was preserved to teach about the eternal priesthood. Others believe that Melchizedek could have been a Christophany, an appearance of Christ in the Old Testament. They argue that his qualities, his role as the king of peace and righteousness, and his lack of genealogy point to a divine nature. However, others interpret Hebrews 7:3 figuratively, suggesting that Melchizedek is merely a type or symbol of Christ rather than Christ himself. They point out that although Melchizedek appears abruptly and mysteriously in Genesis, the text does not explicitly state that he is divine. Regardless of his exact identity, Melchizedek serves as a powerful symbol of Christ's eternal priesthood and the unchanging nature of God's covenant with his people. His story invites us to reflect on the nature of priesthood and kingship. Unlike the Levitical priests, whose authority came from human lineage, Melchizedek's priesthood was based on his relationship with God and spiritual authority. This distinction is key to understanding the role of Jesus as our eternal high priest. Jesus, like Melchizedek, is not a priest by human lineage, but by his divine nature. He offers eternal intercession and mediation between God and humanity, becoming the ultimate fulfillment of Melchizedek's priesthood. As we conclude, let us reflect on what these stories teach us about our relationship with God. The lives of Enoch, Elijah, and Melchizedek inspire us to walk closer to our Creator, to live in faith and obedience, and to seek a greater purpose in our lives. They challenge us to live with unshakable faith, pursue righteousness, and walk in communion with God every day. If this video has blessed and inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Give it a like, share it, and comment below so others can experience the same encouragement. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an opportunity to grow in faith together. Spread the light of God's word to the world.